The Obelisk of Verdant had stood for 17 million years, a monument to civilizations that had risen and fallen like waves against an indifferent shore. It was a structure of impossible geometry, constructed from materials that defied analysis, and it served one purpose: to test the worthiness of sentient species seeking passage through the anchor gate, the only doorway to the core worlds where advanced civilizations thrived. Anastasia stood before it, her breath forming small clouds in the thin atmosphere of Verdant's moon. Her environmental suit was patched in 3 places, held together with human stubbornness and salvaged wire. Behind her, the wreckage of their scout ship Persistence still smoldered, a testament to their desperate crash landing. "The statistics are not encouraging," Uriah said through the comm link, his voice crackling with interference. He was 300 meters away working on the emergency beacon with tools that were meant for eating, not engineering. According to the database, 4,217 species have attempted the Obelisk's trial. 43 succeeded. 1% odds, Anastasia replied, placing her gloved hand against the Obelisk's surface. It was neither warm nor cold, it simply was, existing in a state that human physics couldn't quite explain. "I've beaten worse." "No, you haven't. The time I fixed the oxygen recycler with chewing gum and prayer, that was 2% odds. I did the math afterward." Despite the dire situation, she could hear the smile in Uriah's voice. It was the same smile he'd worn when they'd volunteered for this mission, knowing Earth's first contact delegation had been rejected by every major civilization. Humanity was too young, too violent, too unpredictable. The Obelisk was their last chance. Anastasia pressed her palm flat against the structure, and reality folded. She found herself in a space that wasn't quite space, standing on ground that wasn't quite ground. The Obelisk manifested before her as a towering figure of liquid starlight, its voice resonating in frequencies that bypassed her ears and spoke directly to her consciousness. Species: human. Designation: unproven. Commence trial. The first challenge materialized around her, a complex mathematical proof that would have taken Earth's greatest minds decades to solve. She had 30 seconds. Anastasia's fingers flew across the holographic interface that appeared before her, her enhanced neural implant working overtime. She'd been a quantum physicist before joining the Expeditionary Corps, and she'd spent the 6-month journey to Verdant preparing for exactly this. 29 seconds later, she entered the solution. Incorrect. Hope diminishes. The words hung in the air like a death sentence, but beneath them a small symbol pulsed, a simple icon that every human child would recognize. A circular arrow, the universal symbol for try again. Anastasia pressed it. The Obelisk seemed to pause as if confused. In 17 million years across 4,000 civilizations, no one had ever pressed that button. When a species failed, they accepted their failure with dignity or despair, but they accepted it. They didn't ask for another chance. Deviation from protocol, analyzing. "Not a deviation," Anastasia said calmly. "I'm not done yet." The mathematical proof reappeared, but this time she saw it differently. The first attempt had taught her the parameters, showed her where her logic had failed. Human brains were pattern recognition engines wrapped in spite and determination. She tried again. Incorrect. Hope fades. She pressed, try again. Incorrect. Hope weakens. She pressed it again. 15 attempts later, her neural implant was overheating and her nose was bleeding from the cognitive strain. But she solved it. The Obelisk paused for 3 full seconds, an eternity for a consciousness that processed information at quantum speeds. Acceptable. Proceed. The challenges came faster after that. Physical trials that pushed her augmented body to its limits. Ethical dilemmas with no right answers, only lesser wrongs. Strategic scenarios where victory meant sacrifice. Each time she failed, and she failed often, that button appeared, and each time Anastasia pressed it, the Obelisk began to change. Its queries became questions. "Why do you persist?" "Because giving up is boring," Anastasia replied, solving a spatial reasoning puzzle on her 47th attempt. "And because my friend out there is counting on me. And because 7 billion people back home are hoping I'll succeed. But mostly, because I can." That button exists, which means someone somewhere thought there might be value in trying again. The button was a formality, A mercy, a final dignity for failures. Weird design choice for a mercy, Anastasia muttered, working through a temporal mechanics problem that made her brain feel like it was folding inside out. Where I come from, mercy looks like giving someone another chance. She failed the temporal problem. Pressed the button. Failed again. Pressed it again. On the 9th attempt, she succeeded. Your species is inefficient. Yeah. We're terrible at giving up. This is not a compliment. Didn't take it as one. Hours passed. Or perhaps seconds. Time moved strangely in the Obelisk's trial space. Anastasia's suit was failing. Her body was breaking down, and she'd lost count of how many times she'd pressed that button. But she was still standing, still trying, still refusing to accept that no hope remains was a final answer. The final challenge appeared. It was elegant in its simplicity, a single question displayed in humanity's own languages. What makes your species worthy? Anastasia stood there swaying slightly and laughed. It hurt to laugh. She'd probably cracked a rib during the physical trials, but she couldn't help it. We're not, she said simply. We're violent, short-sighted, and we make the same mistakes every few generations. We've got 1,000 different cultures that can barely agree on anything. We're babies on the galactic stage, and we know it. Then why should the gate open? Because we showed up anyway, Anastasia replied. Because when you told me there was no hope, I pressed try again. Because worthiness isn't something you are, it's something you become, one failure at a time. And because if you don't let us through that gate, we'll just build our own. It'll take us 1,000 years and cost us everything. But we'll do it. That's what humans do. We see the impossible and treat it like a suggestion. The Obelisk was silent for a long moment. Trial complete, designation, passed. Reality snapped back. Anastasia collapsed to her knees on Verdant's moon, gasping inside her helmet. Through her blurred vision, she saw the anchor gate shimmer to life, its surface rippling with possibility. Anastasia, Uriah's voice crackled through the comm. The gate, it's opening. What did you do? She smiled, tasting blood. Pressed a button, repeatedly. That's it? Sometimes that's enough. As human ships began to receive the beacon's new signal, as Earth's government scrambled to comprehend what had just happened, Anastasia sat in the alien dust and thought about that button. The mercy that wasn't meant to be used. The second chance that 4,000 civilizations had refused to take. Humanity had passed the trial not by being the smartest or the strongest, but by being too stubborn to accept that failure was final. In the end, that was the most human thing of all.